Washington Square On Air is the audio town square for the Washington Square Review, Lansing Community College's literary journal. Writers, readers, scholars, publishing professionals, citizens of the world gather here and chat about all things writing. Hey there, this is Melissa Ford Lucken, editor for the Washington Square Review. I'm here today with Patty McGee, whose most recent book, Not Your Granny's Grammar, is out and available, and we're going to talk about it. Hey there, Patty.
Hi there.
So tell us a little bit about what is the book about, and also how did you come to write it?
So the book is about alternatives to traditional grammar instruction because the vast majority of us really don't understand grammar. And that is rooted in the types of practices that were used of fill in the blank, memorization, identification. It's not to say none of those should be used as we're learning grammar. It's just that we need to really expand the opportunities to study grammar because it's not just a set of rules. It really is living and breathing, and it is like a painter's paintbrush. It's the same for writers. And I identified this problem of practice back when I was a new teacher in the 90s. And I noticed that my grammar instruction was just ineffective. And I had to think of something that would, spice it up. I tried a lot of things and it didn't work. It just became more of like, shame. Like I had a lot of games where there were winners and losers, and the losers were always the ones who didn't know grammar. So I wasn't making it any more palatable. And so I just started thinking over all these years of what can I do differently? What's missing from grammar learning? And all these years later, I also have a co-author who knows grammar better than anyone else I know. And all these years later, we've put together a book that we have tested in classrooms and have seen some really beautiful results. And not just results in understanding grammar, but results in reactions to grammar. There isn't a dreading sort of feeling from either teachers or students. So
let's back up a little bit. Awesome. How would you define grammar if you needed to explain what it is to someone?
Yes, well, grammar is the way we style our writing. There are many types of grammar, meaning there's spoken grammar, and that depends on your home, your community, wherever you're located. There is some type of grammar that is unique to people, so spoken grammar. Then there's a second bucket that I would consider book grammar. That is the author of a book or any type of written piece that they are choosing to use or intentionally misuse grammar. And then there are grammar standards, which are the standards that are either held by each state and they're specific for K to 12, or it's the style guide that we choose to follow dependent upon our audience. And so, for example, some places ask for Chicago style, others will be APA style, and it's just dependent upon who our audience is, what type of writing we're doing. But for the everyday writer, grammar is what we use to make meaning on the page. It's as simple as that.
When kids are taught grammar in school at the very beginning, kindergarten, first, second grade, whenever it happens, what kind of lessons are they given at that time?
Well, K1 grammar, I would say, is very different than 2 and up. Usually by second grade, the majority of students are exposed enough to the English language, as long as it's their native language, that they can start to study grammar as a community, classroom community, where in KN1, we have emerging writers. And those emerging writers have very specific needs and dependent upon kind of where they are. Some people look at kindergarten writing and they see zigzags and swirls and think, uh-oh, this student's in trouble. But it actually is the use of grammar, because writing for young people is a combination of making meaning on the page, talking, and sketching. And so we address what I call pre-grammar and then more formal grammar as they grow throughout KN1. And the trickiest part for teachers is the fact that there will always be a kindergartner who can write in full sentences as if they, had some extra special gift that was handed to them. And then others who are doing the zigzags and swirls on the page sitting right next to each other. And so the approach in those grade levels, I prefer small groups that are around the same emerging phase, and that we have playful experiences to help students move through those emerging stages.
So kids even at that age are existing in the different grammars that you mentioned before, the spoken,
yes.
Written.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot to navigate.
Yes, it is. And at the same time, if we just let students at that age engage with paper or paper booklets, they are using all the other things that they have been learning about writing in a playful way on the page. They're almost role-playing writers. They've seen enough books, and they've seen enough of what others have created, where they are doing their best, pushing themselves, which is pretty cool, to the edge of their zone of proximal development, just by naturally engaging on the page.
Yep, modeling what they've seen. You mentioned group activities for that age, the second grade level. What would be a good example?
Yes, so it's more for KN1, second grade and up. I would recommend a different approach. But in KN1, what we might do is take writing samples and find writing samples that are similar to each other. So let's say we have students that are using shapes to communicate well. We can make out what it is that's on the page. They can come back to that and know what they were doing, and maybe some letter-like symbols. And so for that group, I'd be working on really the things like return sweep, directionality. It's all concepts of print at that point. Where with another group, if we're really wrapped our heads around the alphabetic principle, it might be using dominant sounds to write sentences. And so it differs, but those are the types of focus areas I would take dependent upon where students are in their emerging stages. And sometimes they have one foot in one stage and one foot in another. And then I pick and choose where I want to support them the most.
If I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like you're looking for patterns. Okay, helping them recognize patterns and make use of the patterns. Okay, and then what about second grade or older?
Yes, second grade and up, and I think this is for even adults, that we start at the sentence level, and it's a whole group study on sentences where we look at simple, compound, and complex sentences. Then eventually, as we get older, we bring in the ever elusive compound complex sentence. And we study sentences, at least as the first area to focus on, because those are the building blocks of writing and the containers of all parts of speech. And with that study, obviously second grade, what that looks like, and eighth grade, what that looks like, or high school, or even college, what that looks like, is just gets more and more sophisticated with the different types of sentences that we will write. But having at least 3 basic sentence structures are so helpful for anyone who's writing anything. We know that these are the structures we can use. We just become more fluent writers. It allows us, say, these 3 structures of simple, compound, and complex sentences. With those structures, we can look over our writing and say, do I have too many like short and simple sentences? Is that intentional? Should I combine some? Should I combine them into a compound sentence? Or should I combine them into a complex sentence? And then that's where it becomes, like I was saying before, the artist's paintbrush, that they're intentionally knowing the constructs of sentences and then deciding if they would like to change them so the writing sounds like they want it to sound. If it's academic writing, it has a certain sound to it. If it is more personal writing, it has a certain sound to it. And it's always thinking about who the reader will be.
That's awesome.
It does make a big difference, though, to have those types of sentences under one's belt.
Can you dust off some memories about the different types of sentences? Give us a definition and an example for each.
Sure. So a simple sentence can be wordy, but I'm not going to use a wordy one right now.
Okay.
It has subject and predicate, which most of us have heard of. But for those who find that tricky, we often say it has a who and a what did they do. Like he ran, he tripped. And now that's a very simple sentence, but it's easier to understand how to build the others when we have fewer words. And then we can add in other words as we wish. So we have he ran, he tripped. The first type of sentence can be, well, we talked about simple sentences. Compound sentences are built with 2 simple sentences, and they're using coordinating conjunctions, which for most people is a mouthful. It's like, okay, coordinating, subordinating, like which ones, adverbial, this and that. So we just give them a nickname. I didn't come up with this. This has been around for a very long time. But the coordinating conjunctions, we use the acronym FANBOYS, which is for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. And now with those, let's make a compound sentence with he ran, he tripped. What we need to do for that is maybe start off with he ran. I'm going to pick a FANBOYS. I think I'm going to pick an and. There's a period after the first simple sentence. You need to change that to a comma and then say, and he tripped. Where we are seeing some evolution in grammar is that comma before the FANBOYS is not used as often. So I have a feeling that is not going to be a rule, a hard and fast rule, but something more optional, kind of like the Oxford comma.
Right. I know in some fiction writers now omit that comma because they think that it makes the readability more fluid, and some editorial policies also remove the comma. So an author might send in their manuscript with that comma, and then they all get taken out. And this author's had that happen. So I'm talking from experience. I very carefully put in all of those commas only to have them removed. But
yes.
And I just want to clarify, the FANBOYS are the only words that can link together the 2 simple sentences, right?
When you're making a compound sentence, yes.
Okay. All right. Okay, so now we've got the simple and the compound.
And then the complex sentences. There's 2 ways of making them, where the subordinating conjunction, which we've nicknamed sentence destroyers, and I'll explain why in a second, come at the beginning or join the two sentences together. So I had at one point memorized all of the subordinating conjunctions, and I know that there's a couple of different ways of remembering them, either with an acronym or some other things. So I'm just going to actually go back into my book here so that I can just look at a list of some of them. So let's say we still have the same two sentences. He ran, he tripped. We can have subordinating conjunctions such as although, unless, whereas, after, before, since, until. These are all different examples. There's many more. And so we call it a sentence destroyer because whenever you put it in front of a simple sentence, it's no longer a sentence any longer. So it becomes, in fancy words, a dependent clause. It works really well to just call it sentence destroyers because it's describing its function. Right. People have said to me, why be so violent? I'm like, it's just a sentence and it's the function of how this works. So
it's only destroyed as a sentence, not as an entity.
Exactly. So let's say we have he ran, he tripped. And I'd like to use the word because he ran. Then I would change the period to a comma. He tripped. So that would be a dependent clause or a destroyed sentence followed by an independent clause. And there's a comma there. I'm going to flip those two sentences around. We're going to start with he tripped. And then I'll go to the sentence he ran. He tripped because he ran. He tripped is our independent clause. Because he ran is our dependent clause with the sentence destroyer joining the two sentences together. And therefore, there is no comma. Which, that's why we want to refer back to fanboys.
Okay, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to me that you're placing the meaning of the sentence first and then using your awareness of grammar from there.
Mm-hmm.
So the grammar is there to serve the sentence, not exist independently.
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
What about the compound complex?
Okay. Let me think of a third sentence. This one is actually hard to describe without having something written behind me here. So he ran, he tripped, he jumped. Now we have three independent clauses. He ran, he tripped.
He fell.
What did I say?
He fell.
He fell. Okay. I'm like, that's what I had in my head.
Yes.
He ran, he tripped, he fell. Because he ran, comma, he tripped, comma, and he fell. So that's one example, but we can move the different clauses around, and coming back to what we know about simple, compound, and complex sentences teach us where the commas would go.
Mm-hmm.
So if the comma goes, if you're joining two independent clauses with the fanboys, you're going to use a comma. If you're joining to an independent clause and a dependent clause, no comma. So looking back at the rules of the compound and complex sentences can help us remember where a comma would be.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot have three dependent clauses in one sentence. We can have three independent clauses in one sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can have a mix of anything in between.
Okay. I feel like we've left the semicolon out. So can we add the semicolon in real quick?
Sure. Yeah. Instead of a compound sentence or a complex sentence, we just changed the the period to a semicolon. So one of the biggest things that is a no-no right now is the comma splice. So if you have an independent clause and another independent clause, and you put a comma to join them, which I see everywhere I go, it's called a comma splice. I also think that's going to be evolving into something, give it 20 years, and there might be some other rules around that because our spoken grammar and our written grammar influence standard grammar. And so that's how it evolves over time. So it would just be as simple as taking two independent clauses, and if they're closely related and you want the reader to pay more attention to the relationship between those two simple sentences, that's when we might use a semicolon.
He tripped, he fell.
Yeah.
So we were saying that those two things are closely related.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So it definitely changes the readability if we have he tripped, period, he fell, period. A reader's going to interpret that slightly differently than if we use the semicolon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, my co-author, Tim Donahue, knows more about grammar than anyone I know. And it's partly because his parents were English teachers. And so they just passed down the grammar knowledge. Mm-hmm. He also has passed down the grammar knowledge to his three sons. One of them, I believe, is in 4th grade. And he was telling me that his youngest came home and at dinner said, I saw so-and-so use a semicolon today. So the fact that their dinner conversation is over, grammatical options is just, I mean, that's how he knows it, how he learned it, and how his kids are learning it.
Well, I'm glad they're excited about it because I can relate to what you were talking about earlier, how people kind of grow up with that red pen syndrome, being corrected and only told, you did this wrong, rather than kind of the approach that you're taking where you use the grammar, commas, semicolons, to enhance the meaning rather than as some kind of set of rules that really doesn't have anything to do with the meaning. Yeah. You
Exactly.
Have you talked to people about this red pen effect that they felt when they were younger?
Sure. One little thing I'd like to add before we move on to the red pen effect is that starting at the sentence level, knowing those sentences, that quick tutorial that I just gave is not enough time for anyone to learn them and just by lecture. So I recommend grammar manipulatives where it's already pre-made simple sentences, having some cut out, and then having some fanboys cut out and a comma cut out, and just playing around making them that way. Or having word cards where it's just basically you make a chart on a document and you write in all parts of speech, endings, punctuation, and then you play with those words and those parts of grammar to just try it out. So that would be important for anybody who wants to brush up on their grammar, that giving yourself a chance to play around with the concept prior to using it on the page is very helpful. But yeah, there is such a connection between grammar, writing, and the red pen. And the amount of red pen, and even if you use a purple pen or a green pen, it doesn't matter. It's the actual way we're communicating with writers. And if we're teaching writing, we want to be extra careful in how we respond to it. Number one, if we just continue to correct writing and correct writing and correct writing, it's not teaching. That's editing. Mm-hmm. And we need editors in our lives, and that's a good thing. But correction isn't teaching. It's like saying, let's look at a math problem, and it says 2 + 2 = 5. and we cross out the 5 and write 4, and then they recopy it, like people don't understand it. They're just recopying it. And the same is true when it comes to correction as a form of feedback. And what comes along with that is also a sense of shame, of avoidance, of feeling inadequate, and to feel like everyone around you, whether it's whoever is the teacher or whoever your classmates are all looking at these quote unquote fatal flaws in writing. And so I'm really done personally with that kind of talk about writing and grammar. Like fatal flaws, grammar police, I'm silently correcting your grammar. Like that's just not a way to support our learning in something that is very complex. Grammar is not linear. Grammar is not just a static set of rules. It's very deep and nuanced. And if we really want to go into that deep and nuanced place so that we can create meaning on the page, we have to stop correcting. But I'm not saying to not give feedback. I'm just saying that there's a better way.
What productive ways are there?
Yeah. So I was searching. For the longest time, I thought there was only 2 forms of feedback, that it was correction or fluff. And there was nowhere in between. But I had this beautiful model in my life for a number of years. And it wasn't something I found in schools. It was my dad and his sister-in-law, my Aunt Helen. My dad wanted to learn how to crochet. And my Aunt Helen was a master crocheter, still is. And she would come and sit side by side with my dad, and he would have whatever blanket he was working on, because blanket was his only genre. He did not do scarf or mitten or handkerchief, nothing. It was blanket. And he would usually say something self-deprecating about his blanket, like, oh, looks like the state of Michigan. And my Aunt Helen would respond with, yes, but look right here in the blanket. You must have been counting your stitches, or some other way of saying, here's a strength. And then instead of taking his blanket and fixing it for him, which is what correction is in writing, she picked one thing. And she thought to herself, what is one thing that is going to help Peter be a better crocheter? Not what are we going to do to fix this blanket? And so she would narrow it down to say the holes in the blanket. And again, she wouldn't fix them. She would have her own crocheting materials, and she'd say, step by step, here's how to fix holes. But just know your counting is really helpful in fixing holes too. So watch me. Now you try. And as he was trying, he was being coached. And now that sounds like a lengthy process, but if we're looking to the writer first, and we simply have the frame of, here's something that's strong, here's a next step, that's really the essence of it all. And that falls in between correction and fluff. It is saying a strength, so we keep on using that strength. And then here's a next step opportunity. It doesn't sound punitive. There's no shame in that for most.
It also validates what they have so far. You have this so far, and this is something that's really good. Let's do more of this good thing. Yeah. Exactly.
What
I was thinking earlier when you were talking about, red pen stuff is also it harms them as a human, because it kind of can make them feel like anyone, any age, that what they are thinking is also not valid simply because the sentences don't look the way that someone thinks that they should look. So it all gets converged into one message: your thinking, your thoughts, your values, your story.
Yes.
Not good enough, and until you can express them in this approved way, they're not.
Yep.
You're not allowed to express them, which is really sad.
Really sad. I mean, think about how many opportunities are missed when we hold the belief that our writing and our ideas aren't worth putting down on the page.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many people have chosen different career paths
Mm-hmm.
because they don't feel strong
Mm-hmm.
in grammar and in writing?
Yep.
How many people have chosen different places to live because of the fact that they feel like they're not adequate enough in grammar, in the what we call quote unquote superior grammar, which there is no superior grammar. It's just simply what tends to be valued by the upper echelon, let's say. All grammar is valuable. And so it's sad for me to think, and just the way you're describing, that their ideas, people's attempts at passions that they want to follow, that they're then stifled because there's just so much internal shame around it.
And some confusion also.
Yeah.
As you described, a correction doesn't help you learn what to do instead. It's just telling you what not to do. And most of us know what we're supposed to not do, but we don't know what we are supposed to do.
Right. And in the same vein, if we don't know if that is correct grammar, then we're just going to simplify it. Like, I have to tell you, I personally am a terrible speller. I need to really learn how words work. So if I'm writing something, which I often am, like up on a board, I'm going to choose the word that I know how to spell over the word I really want to use.
Right.
Right. And that's the same thing when it comes to grammar. If I'm afraid that this sentence is breaking a rule of some sort and I'm going to get dinged on it, I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm not going to stretch.
For sure. And I think this is something true of everyone at all ages.
Yeah.
Over time.
It is.
All right.
It is. It really is.
Real quick, we have to talk about AI. How is that going to affect grammar, teaching, learning, and thinking about grammar?
Well, I'm hopeful that it's going to create a greater need for knowing grammar, because AI can spit something out. And I use AI a lot, not to write my writing, but to see what their feedback is, or to take something I've already written and see what it would do with it, and compare my writing to the AI writing. And most of the time, it's my voice I prefer. And so really thinking about grammar as making meaning on the page, like an artist. And if we continue to think that way, then we need to know grammar even more, because that way, when we look at something that is written by AI, we can say to ourselves, I don't like the way it's said. I don't think that's capturing my meaning. And then we can do something about it.
That's beautiful. I like that. If people are interested in picking your book up, where's a good place for them to find it?
I think the best place to find it is just going to my website, which is pattymcgee.org. We just want to use a Y in Patty McGee, because there's a famous skateboarder named Patty McGee, and I'm not a skateboarder.
Okay, good to know. If people are interested in finding you online and social media, can they find you somewhere?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, and my handle is at PMG McGee.
Okay. Beautiful. We'll be sure to include that in the show notes.
Great.
Thanks a lot for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for stopping by the audio town square of the Washington Square Review. Until next time, this has been the Washington Square On Air from Lansing Community College. To find out more about our writers community and literary journal, visit lcc.edu/WSR. Writing is messy, but do it anyway.